So let's talk about for loop container. So for loop container, in general sense, like any programming language, there is for while and conditional looping structures, right? So do while is another thing too. So for SSIS, you can use a for loop container. So how does for loop container work is, um, you'll have an assigning value, will have an incremental value. So and a condition. So let's say if I define two things, let's say if I define I equals to 1, okay, and at the rate I greater than or equal to at the rate j, no, ulta, okay, and at the rate I equals to I plus 1. So what happens in this? First of all, I is equal to 1. Then it is checking for, let's assume j is 5. So until 5 repetitions, it will go and work it out, right? So for the first time, it will go because it's 1. Second time, it will go increment by 2, by 1, then it is 2, and so on until it reaches the j value. So that is just an for loop structure. Okay. So for that example to show up, we have to define few variables. So let's hit OK and go for variables. In here, I am going to define two variables. One is I and other one is j. I and j. Okay, perfect. And both are int. I is equal to 1 and j is equal to 5. So that's what we'll say. So as soon as I define them, the error has been gone, right? So I will use something here such as script component to print what's a value inside in there. So SSIS toolbox, I'll go get a script component, script task. Okay. Read variable is j. No, I have to read I because that's the one which gets incremented every time. So I'm reading I. Then again, I have to write script. Message box dot show dts dot variable user I, that's my variable, that value dot to string. Variables. What's missing in the variables? Details dot. Enums. Cannot be used. System of object data. Object modules. Variables cannot be used అంటే ఎందుకుమా సిస్టమ్ ఉంది విండోస్ ఫార్మ్స్ లో వేరియబుల్స్ అన్నిటిని యూజ్ చేస్తాం మెసేజ్ బాక్స్ లో దీనికి ఏమొచ్చింది object cannot convert from object to string. Okay, so for that reason I have to have a to string. Okay, now it's working. Okay, these square brackets were the problem. So I built the solution, build is succeeded. Okay, that's very good. So let's hit OK and run this for loop container. So what should happen is for every loop it runs, it has to pop up that variable as a text box. Okay, so here it is. So if you hit OK, then it'll go bring a second one. Okay, then again third. fourth, and this should be the final fifth. Okay, that shows that this loop has run for 5 times, starting with 1 to 5. Okay, so if you have to ever run something in a looping structure that's continuously based on the conditions you provide up on the top here, you could have any logic. You could get a table from values from the table and load it into 3 different files based on a variable value. You could rename the tables, or you could rename the you could rename your, what do you call, you could rename your flat file destination or anything like that, and you could write continue it for those many times. So it's just a looping character around it. Based on your logic, you have to write it. Any questions here, Praveen?
No. Exact a situation use చేస్తాం
exactly ఏ సిచ్యువేషన్ లో యూజ్ చేస్తావు. సో ఇప్పుడు నేను ఒక టేబుల్ పెట్టుకున్నాను ఆ డేటాబేస్ లా. ఓకే, ఆ డేటాబేస్ లో ఉన్న టేబుల్ పేరు ఏంటంటే స్టూడెంట్ స్టూడెంట్ అనే టేబుల్. ఓకే, దాంట్లో ఐడి 1 నుంచి 20 వరకు ఉన్నాయి. ఓకే, సో నేను లూప్ 1 to 20 టైమ్స్ రన్ చేస్తే 1 ఐడి తీసుకొని అది స్క్రిప్ట్ కాంపోనెంట్ ఇస్తుంది. స్క్రిప్ట్ కాంపోనెంట్ లో నేనేం చేస్తా అంటే ఒక నీట్ గా ప్రింట్ అయ్యేటట్టు ఒక ప్రింటర్ కి కమాండ్ పంపిస్తా. ప్రింట్ వాడి రిపోర్ట్ ఫైల్ ఏదైతే ఉందో దాన్ని పికప్ చేసుకొని ప్రింటర్ కి పంపిస్తా. సో అట్లా ఏమైతుంది, వాడు 1 to 20 ఉన్న వాళ్ళందరూ రిపోర్ట్ కార్డ్స్ ప్రింట్ అవుతాయి ఒకటిసారి. అది ఒక ఎగ్జాంపుల్ అనుకోవచ్చు నువ్వు. లేకపోతే అది 1 to 10 ఐడిలో స్టూడెంట్ ఐడీలు ఇస్తున్నప్పుడు ఆ స్క్రిప్ట్ కాంపోనెంట్ లో కొంచెం ఎక్కువ రాసినాం అనుకో, లేకపోతే వాళ్ళ లేఅవుట్ కూడా డిజైన్ చేయి ఆటోమేటిక్ గా, ఈ పర్టికులర్ ఫీల్డ్స్ లో ఈ పర్టికులర్ వాల్యూస్ పెట్టు రిపోర్ట్ డిస్ప్లే అయ్యేటప్పుడు అని చెప్పి అన్నాం అనుకో, సో అది ప్రింట్ చేసేటప్పుడు ఇట్లా డిఫరెంట్ ఫార్మాట్ లో చేయొచ్చు. అర్థమైనా? ఈ స్క్రిప్ట్ కాంపోనెంట్ అనేది C# కోడ్ కాబట్టి C# కోడ్ లో ఏమన్నా చేయొచ్చు. లైక్ ఒక డేటాబేస్ కి కనెక్ట్ అయ్యి దాంట్లో ఉన్న వాల్యూస్ ని పుల్అప్ చేయొచ్చు. లేకపోతే ఇట్లా ప్రింటింగ్ కి ప్రింటర్ ని ఇన్వోక్ చేయొచ్చు, వెబ్సైట్స్ ని ఇన్వోక్ చేయొచ్చు, అట్లాంటివి ఏదైనా చేయొచ్చు. ఓకే, ఇంకొకటి కూడా ఏం చేయొచ్చు తెలుసా? సో లెట్స్ సే నీ దగ్గర ఒక ప్రీ డిఫైన్డ్ నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ ఫైల్స్ ఉన్నాయనుకో. ప్రీ డిఫైన్డ్ నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ ఫైల్స్ ఉండి ఆ ఫైల్స్ అన్నిటిని వాటి నేమ్స్ జస్ట్ 1 or 2 డిజిట్స్ డిఫరెన్స్ లో ఉన్నాయనుకో. అండ్ నేను ఫస్ట్ ఫైల్ పేరు 1, సెకండ్ ఫైల్ పేరు 2, థర్డ్ ఫైల్ పేరు 3, అట్లా ఒక 100 ఫైల్స్ ఉన్నాయి. కానీ నువ్వు లోడ్ చేయాల్సింది 1 to 5 మాత్రమే అనుకో. సో లూప్ 5 times రొటేట్ అవ్వమని చెప్పి డేటా ఫ్లో టాస్క్ లోపల పెట్టి ఒక ఫ్లాట్ ఫైల్ సోర్స్ ఎక్సెల్ ఫైల్ ఉంటుంది కదా, ఆ ఎక్సెల్ ఫైల్ సోర్స్ తీసుకొని డెస్టినేషన్ వచ్చి డేటాబేస్ పెట్టచ్చు. ఆ ఎక్సెల్ ఫైల్కి ఎట్లా చెప్పాలంటే బయట లూప్ లో ఏ వేరియబుల్ రొటేట్ ఉందో ఆ వేరియబుల్ అడ్రస్ తోటే దీని అడ్రస్ డిపెండ్ అయింది అని చెప్పాలి. ఓకే, అర్థం కాలేదా?
వచ్చింది.
ఓకే, సో ఒకసారి ఫర్ ఈచ్ లూప్ చూద్దాం. దెన్ దాని తర్వాత నేను ఒక క్వశ్చన్ లాంటి ఎగ్జాంపుల్ అడుగుతాను, నువ్వే దానికి ఆన్సర్ చెప్దు. ఓకే, సో ఫర్ ఈచ్ లూప్ కంటైనర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ నెక్స్ట్. సో ఐ కెన్ disable this one. Okay. So inside the file for each loop enumerator, for each loop editor, you have multiple enumerators. You can play with files, you can play with ADO.NET elements, you can play with uh, SMO objects, or you can play with a HDFS file system enumerators and all those things. Okay. For now, we'll talk about for each loop as a file enumerator. Okay. So I'll go browse my SSIS packages. Okay, just a second. So if I go here, all right, this is my place. Okay, anything ending with JPG. Okay, so inside the variable mapping, I will create a new. I'll use an existing variable. I can let's create a variable. Um, I named it for each. Initial values nothing. Okay, we'll use it for index. Okay, so what are we going to do is so inside that particular folder we have these three images, right? We'll also create one more folder called processed. So we'll move all those files one by one into this processed folder. Okay, using a file system task. Okay, so whereas for each loop container will help us to go to this directory and pick up one file at a time.
Okay.
Anything which ends with JPEG. You could see the setting here in the collection sizes for each loop container and anything ending with JPEG. Okay, in this particular folder is where you have to go. Okay, so I have used this one more variable to store what is the current file name and all. So in the for each loop inside the for each loop container, I have this file system task. File system task. It's asking you, is the destination path a variable? No, it's not a variable because I don't have the variable with the value and all. So I'm going to use a new connection. So the new connection is going to be existing folder, and the folder name is going to be a processed folder. Okay. So I have to go to this documents and Visual Studio 2015, and then there I have to go for projects, SSIS training, images, process. That's a folder I have. Okay. So on copy files. Okay. Instead of copy files, we'll say move files. Okay. Is source path in a variable? Yes, it is in a variable. So the variable name is for loop for each, user for each. That is our variable that I have written. I'm going to say okay. There is one more warning. For each loop used in the source, destination is empty. Okay, that should not be a problem. So we'll go back onto the variables. Copy this. We'll say fox.jpg. Okay, inside the variables. box.jp. JPG. Okay. Now it's not. So if I run this, at the same time I have to put this up here so that we could see it. Okay, let's run this task. What is this execute task? Execute container. So all the three files got moved from here to here.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
So that's how the file system task as well as for each loop container will work. Okay. So that is for file enumerator. File enumerator. What does file enumerator does is it takes a folder name and what kind of extension are we looking for, and then it will process each file one by one file. It'll hold it in this particular variable. Okay. So inside in there, either you could use a data flow task where let's imagine if you have that folder where it has all the Excel files, okay, hundreds of Excel files, and you wanna process one by one. So at that point, what would you use? You would use a for each loop container and choose that particular path, and inside the data flow task, you'll have an what would you have? You will have a data flow task inside in the Excel connector, and the destination could be your table or something like that. Okay, so that's one way. So we'll also make an example of that one too. Okay, so what I'm going to do is inside the SSIS training, I will create a new folder. Excel. Okay, we'll do that do one of its example. Okay, for that I may want another copy. So let's say I'll go back to the data flow task. Okay. Okay, excuse me. In the source, I'll take an AdventureWorks table or something like that. Okay, I'll do simple one. I'll go here, connect to person.person table. So in their columns, I'll say business entity ID, first name, last name, and email promotion. That's good. Okay. I will go use a condition split. Okay, based on email promotion as a condition equals to 1. I'll say okay. Equals to 2 and equals to 0. That's 3 different conditions. 3 or 4 different conditions. So I'll take 4 different flat files. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just creating 4 different flat files for myself, okay? Just to show you the other example. So I'll go say new flat file. Okay, fixed delimited. Okay, I'll go browse the path. Okay, the same inside the XXL files. I'll set this as a 1.text. Okay, column names, map the columns. That's good. Mapping, perfect. I'll go here, so new, delimited. I'll name this file as 2. Perfect. Three. The fourth file. Okay. So 4 files I'll be creating. So once I execute this particular data flow task, okay, what would happen is inside my SSIS training Excel files, I'll get those 4 files. Okay, that's golden, very good. Okay, perfect. Let's stop this. Now let's disable this. Okay, now we'll take one more example of a control flow for each loop container task. Okay, in this example, we are still using the file for each file enumerator. Okay, the path is going to be this particular path. So anything that which is ending with txt is what I want. The variable that we should hold this thing is, I could say for each loop, or I could say I'll just rename this variable to something new. So I'll say just 221. That's my variable name. It needs something different, not the number. Text file ID. Text file. Just the text file should do it. Okay, that's my variable. All right. So inside in there, I have to put a data flow task, because I'm going to use that text files and write it back into a table. So here my source is going to be a flat file source. You could use one of this flat files. So you can preview the data. There is no data. Wow. If not, I could use this fifth file. Okay. There is email promotion, 0 data in this flat file. Okay. Very good. So I will go ahead and use a destination, which is going to be in my SQL server. I'll use same SQL server connection. But in there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new table. I'll just name it randomly, saying for each loop for each underscore example. Okay. Perfect. So in this example, for this flat file connection manager, just remember we took an connection manager by name flat file connection manager 5, right? That was our flat file connection manager. Okay. So couple of things you need to do here. So first of all, you need to find out where is flat file connection manager 5. Okay. So this is what it is, right? So you have to go for its properties. Okay. In the connection string, you can see the string itself. Okay. Let me move this here a little bit so you can see its full string. It is pointing to a text file in a particular folder. Okay. Try to go copy it out. So that's one easy way. You can go copy it, cancel it off. Okay. Inside the expression, go for a property called connection string. Okay. And say that you will get, before you do that, you have to do one more thing. Okay. Go cancel this. Inside in the control flow variables, you have one variable called text file, right? So paste that string value in this particular variable. Here I have placed it, right? So then again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the properties of this. Inside this data flow, look for flat file 5, and in the expression, what I'm going to say is connection string, pick it up from the variable name text file. So that is your variable name going to be. And the other property, what I'm going to say is data validation, delay validation true is what other thing I will set up. I'll say close. That's it. So once I run this thing, you all know that my table. Okay, let's refresh this table so that we know there is no data in there. Our table name was for each loop example. Okay, if I do a top 1000, you could see that there is no data in here. It's all empty, nothing there. So as soon as I run this, let's execute the container. So it has done it multiple times. That means all the files has been written. So if I run this execute statement now you could see the email promotion 1 elements, email promotion 2 elements, and email promotion 0 elements, all of it at once. Okay, how did it happen? What was the logic? So the logical part you have to remember is what was the variable which was holding your file name from the file for each loop container. So this is the text file variable. So the text file variable has the file name itself, right? So here is a dummy version which I kept, right? So it was a file 3. So second thing, what you have to do is, when you configure your data flow task, you have to know what connection manager are you using for your source, because the source is an Excel file or a CSV file, right? So you have to be sure on that particular part and modify its connection manager. Whereas you see this connection manager here, you have this fx. That means it has some kind of expression coded onto it. So once you go into the properties, the connection manager is written inside the expression as a variable. So that means every time the loop rotates, it will have the new file name in that particular variable, and the new file name is being used from there to here.
Okay.
So the good thing over here is that you have to have the same structure of the same files. That means there should be only 4 columns in all your flat files. Let's say imagine you have a 5th column in your flat files. At that point of time, your data flow task may fail. Okay, that's the only thing you have to remember when you're using for each loop container. That's a limitation. You cannot go import all kinds of files into one single table. That's not going to happen. Okay, that's about your control for each loop container using a file enumerator. Okay, we could also talk about other kind of enumerators. So let's say for the for each loop container, this is a little bit of data administrative example, but try to understand it. In the collections, you have something called the SMO enumerator, right? Okay. So in the SMO enumerator, you could pick up any server. For example, the server I'm going to use is this one. Okay, so browse it. So using an SMO enumerator, what you can do is you can browse a server. That means your server could have any number of folders. Okay, 192.168.2.24. Let's try this one. 224 was the right one. Okay. So inside the databases of Adventure Works, I'm going for views. Okay. Inside the views, I want to their names. That's it. I don't want anything else. So the variable that will hold the views names is I could say VW underscore name. Okay. So every time, so if you go back onto your here in the Adventure Works database, you could see that we have all these views, right? It will print it one by one. We just want to print its names one by one or write it down to somewhere. Okay. So we'll use this where we'll get all the names and write it into a table. Okay. That's one of the example what I'm going to do. It doesn't make any sense, but yeah. Instead, I'll do as a, what do you call a scripted task. That is way better. So in the read variable, what I'm going to bring is User, what was his name? VW underscore name. Message box dot show dot dts dot variable. Message box dot show open. So dot, it's not a method. It has to have a brace on. That's it. That's it. Okay. Okay. To string. So we'll just print up variables in a text box. So build succeeded and all. So that's my first view name. Then again, I would have another view name continuously. Second, third, and further. Okay. So you could either print all the view names, or you could just close it down. Yeah. It has almost like 20 or 30 views. I don't want to run it all together. So I'm just going to stop it here. Okay. So another more important things we have to look into is a sequential container. Okay. Mandeep is still not here today too. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'll teach this sequential container and we'll stop here. Okay. So what does sequential container do? If you see it from the bottom, it says that you can group certain control flow elements into one sequence, and you could have another sequential object together too. Okay, that means when you go build up a sequential container, you can assemble few things into one of it. Okay, and I would say like this. So this one. And the second one would be your sequential, you could have another sequential container, which you could have it independent, or you could connect it to the first sequential container. What that makes sure is, it makes sure that the order in which these components are assigned inside the sequential container is followed. That's number one. Number two, if you have these sequential containers assigned to not linked to each other but side by side, they could execute it by their own self. That means parallelly is what you can execute them as. Okay, which will help them in a long run, because you don't want to wait for certain events to happen, certain things. You could execute them in parallel. Okay, so in simple sense, you could remember it as a grouping tool. So let's say out of these hundreds of components, you could categorize them into 3 or 4 categories and hold it in one particular container. Okay, this container will only talk to the customer information, and the other container will only talk to sales information. Other container will only talk to marketing people. So if you have that package designed in such a way, when there is a problem, you can directly go to the specific container and see which component has created a problem, right? Instead of if you have hundreds of components in a one single package, you don't know which component failed or which component caused the problem. You can get confused. So it's just kind of a grouping in a general sense. Okay, you do not have any properties that which will that you need to set up here. Okay, the only property which will be set up is if any of the child component fails, you want to fail the parental sequence container, right? That's the only property you would be really using. That's fail parent on failure. Okay, and fail package on failure. If you want to fail the whole package, these are the two components you have to set it to true. Okay, so that's a max you would use for the sequential container. Okay, so for now we'll stop here. Based on tomorrow, how is your day? You wanna start tomorrow? Available for one more class tomorrow?
Morning.
Huh? Yeah, go ahead.
Early.
Oh, okay, no problem. Yeah, then we'll meet on Monday to get it done. Okay. Chala.
అనేది ఎగ్జాంపుల్స్ లైక్ ఏదైనా సైట్ ఉందా మనకి చూడడానికి?
నేను పంపిస్తాను.
ఓకే.